Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. I had wanted to include a discussion of the issue, why empire is bad for you. If you're here in the United States, the idea of a U.S. empire is bad for you, for your interest, for your future, for your children, for your family. The empire is the reason we have high levels of unemployment. The empire is responsible for the decline in the standard of living. The empire is responsible for the reactionary political domination of the past 40 to 45 years. The empire is obviously responsible for endless wars, for many, many deaths, for endless casualty lists, for a general barbarization of the political life of the country, of course, for being hated in the world, for being subjected maybe in the future to real aggression, which so far there hasn't been, but it's conceivable if you keep antagonizing the world with imperialist aggression. All of this is bad. This is what Ataturk told the Turks at the end of World War I. This is what de Gaulle told the French over Algeria. Let it go. You can come out of this stronger, more united, more prosperous. Get rid of the empire and assert your real strong suits. A peace race of peaceful economic competition. If the Chinese are pulling ahead of you, then match them 2-1, 3-1, and you will maintain a position in the world, and above all, you'll be doing it on a positive basis. Now, we want to talk about the U.S. domestic. We're going to have only one segment on that. Let's talk about Japan and the crisis in Japan in the past week. Essentially, what happened in Japan, as people now know, was an earthquake and a tidal wave, a tsunami. And these have killed, I would estimate, about 20,000 people. In the wake of this, the main problem in Japan is logistics. It is the ability to deliver electric power, food, and other human necessities. There's also the question of what happened at this Fukushima nuclear plant. So far, though, we have 20,000 people who were killed by an earthquake and a tsunami. Killed at the nuclear plant, so far as is known and so far as we can tell, 0. Nevertheless, the hysterical attention of the Malthusian world media attaches to these nuclear plants. And it's understandable. This radiation is obviously a threat to human life in the area. Let's look at the causes. Rather than attempting to draw immediate conclusions, these are nuclear plants that are all pre-Carter relics. They are obsolete, outdated, outmoded nuclear plants. They are the GE Mark I type. It's dramatic because we've also got 20 to 25 of those here in the United States. 40 years is a long time. You don't drive a car that's 40 years old. Other forms of capital goods cannot be expected to last for 30 to 40 years. In this case, the Tokyo Electric Power Company chose not to make the necessary investment. So we've got essentially pre-Carter nuclear reactors that have now failed in the framework of the worst earthquake to hit Japan in modern times. In other words, since records have been kept over about 150 years, this is the worst. It is the worst. It's one of the top 4 earthquakes of the last 100 years. So it's an event that might happen in some part of the world every 25 years, but in Japan it has not happened at this level in 150 years. Now, the attention, therefore, focuses on the backup cooling systems. The original backup cooling system based on generators with fuel that were there, that were obviously disabled by the tidal wave, and then the battery backup, which also proved to be inadequate. These reactors were obsolete. The investment should have been made to replace them, the preferred alternative, or to upgrade them. Why were they not replaced or upgraded? For this, we have to look at the economic history of Japan. In Japan, at about the time that I visited there in 1986, you had the beginnings of a bubble, and the bubble was the real estate bubble and related bubbles. There was a bubble in the Japanese stock market that got it up to, I believe, 36,000 on the Nikkei. And that then began to come down in 90 to 91. And this crash, it started with the Plaza Accords, right? The idea was to inflate the Japanese economy with hot money as a means of relieving pressure on the dollar, because the dollar had gone up too much, and they were manipulating the currencies. This is James Baker III, from the Plaza to the Louvre, and so forth. It led to a bubble economy in Japan. When the bubbles came down, by about 1995, you had the Japanese banking system transformed into zombie banks. Indeed, this is where the term zombie bank comes from. It's coined to describe the situation in Japan in the 1990s. Since then, an overwhelming amount of the national resources of Japan has been wasted by attempting to mask the inherent bankruptcy of these Japanese zombie banks because of their stock market speculation, real estate speculation, and so forth. Japan has been impoverished. This is the key to what the theorists like to call the lost decade. Well, it's more than a lost decade. It's now 15 years that have been lost and more. Therefore, we have, as a general sort of a back-of-the-envelope calculation, the resources needed to replace or upgrade these obsolete General Electric Mark I, and that means cheaper version nuclear reactors from the pre-Carter period. These resources they've not been made available because of the decline of the Japanese economy under speculative auspices set up by James Baker III and other people in the Treasury, U.S. Treasury, during the Reagan period. Now, therefore, the response to this is not what Senator Lieberman says. Senator Lieberman says, well, we've got to stop everything with nuclear. No, what you've got to do is do a quick, thorough investigation of exactly what went wrong. But I think it's already clear what went wrong. These are relics. These are antiques. These are obsolete. They were done with the cost-cutting consideration prominently in mind. And again, that was the selling point of the GE Mark I. You need now to rebuild the entire array of power plants that you have, and you've got to go to the most modern designs, which are high-temperature reactors, pebble bed reactors, fourth-generation reactors. And if there are special problems with seismic areas, you have alternatives like the CANDU and others that can be made specifically for that, although these are for specialty uses in that regard. The most dangerous thing you can do is to say from this, we should do nothing. We should simply go ahead. The U.S. has 103 reactors. They're all now obsolescent or obsolete. And I've pointed out in previous programs, if you don't address the issue of obsolescence and obsolete status, that becomes dangerous. So you can't expect these things to last forever. Everything else was destroyed by the earthquake and the tsunami, everything along the coast. So therefore, these are no exception. Remember also the costs, right? Again, so far, 0 people killed. It's amazing. You'd think that people would be talking about the dangers of earthquakes and tsunamis, because that's what killed 20,000 people. Who is talking about the investments necessary to build seawalls, to build dikes, to build levees, to build systems to break a tsunami if it arrives near important metropolitan areas? What's the defense situation of a place like Los Angeles or San Francisco or San Diego or Portland or Seattle or whatever it is? This is what you have to think of. On the other side, electric power, without electric power, the death in Japan would be even greater than it is. And it's thanks to the fact that they still have the other nuclear reactors that are functioning, that they can even address the issues at the ones that are in trouble. Back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.